What is this? One halving, two halving, three halving.
No, this is this is just the Bitcoin halvings plotted out in a chart.
Yeah.
And now we get it actually into some charts which talk a bit more about like the recent situation. We can look at some like from a cycle perspective, but and use some on chain. So here we look at the halvings, and the halvings are scaled. The previous halvings here are scaled to the current halving, right? So
this implies volatility is decreasing then.
Yeah. So this is the volatility decreasing, but yeah, the third halving was kind of this inflection point, right? So so perhaps like available supply was the highest. That's the Hall model theory, right? So the available supply was the highest for actually the past bull market, and next bull market it should be lower. So perhaps we can see more gains. Here we can see time-wise if you compare the cycles from the halving, these red dots, which represent the lows that we made and the bottoms that we made, we're kind of time-wise in this chart, we're kind of aligned, right? So it's this different perspective. I mean, we can start from, as I said, you can look from the halving, we can look from the tops. And it's often useful to look at different perspectives because there's no one right way to look at Bitcoin cycles, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just like we should look at the state, and that therefore on-chain is so interesting because we can look at the state, what we're in, and then maybe one representation or one perspective on the cycle is because of that more valid than another one. And so I think it's reasonable to look like we didn't have the gains here that we all hope for, like prices above 100K. But in terms of the rest, it kind of looks like, diminishing returns. But we made kind of the bottom at the same, more or less at the same stage. And so that kind of gives a bit more confidence that the bottom potentially might be in.
Interesting. Very cool. This is a very bullish session.
So in the next in this chart, we again look at the halvings. So the same way, actually the same. It's kind of the same to the previous chart. We look at the halvings, but they're not scaled. They're just shown on the log chart. So we can look at them. And here I included realized price, so the average purchase price of all Bitcoin. And so we can see again also that at these bottoms that we made, we all fell below realized price, right? So at more or less the exact moment in time in the cycle, if we count from the halving. And so that again gives kind of this confidence, we've been above it for a bit now, again, that we might have the low in. But we can also see that I think in 2013, it can stretch out quite a bit. I mean, so therefore I wouldn't be surprised if price goes relatively sideways for the next 6 months. Like perhaps if we like one warning signal would definitely be falling again below realized price. If we fall again below realized price, that could mean that we perhaps might get another low, let's say.
Yeah, but that we had that in 2013.
Yeah, we didn't. We kind of rejected off realized price, right? So we tried to get above it, but we rejected off it 2 times. And only the third time we kind of managed to get above it.
But when you say it rejected it, that implies there's like a trading, like there's some trading against that, there's more just.
Yeah. So the reason why you would reject off realized price is because realized price is the average purchase price of all Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So when we're below realized price, most people are at a loss, and so when we get to that level of realized price.
They sell off.
They sell to get their money back.
Yeah,
practically. That's why
that makes sense.
But we've been above it now, and so that's. But a warning signal, would be if we get below realized price, which I definitely think it's possible. I think like this, we're in this extreme value zone.
But we haven't dipped that far. Like the previous 2 cycles, we dipped quite significantly below realized price, whereas we haven't.
Yeah, we also didn't have the upside this time, right? So do we need to get the downside? I don't know. Perhaps we do. But again, an increase in market cap would also perhaps mean that less volatility, right? So we don't necessarily have to. But so if we go, but I do think this is really a value zone that we're in, which might still take another 6 months or so.
Accumulation zone.
An accumulation zone, yeah. And perhaps, one warning signal is going again below realized price. We might make another low, but if we don't,
just buy the shit out of it.
If by the end of the year we kind of manage to stay above realized price, then it becomes like quite obvious that the low was in, right? Like on based on historic data, obviously. So in this chart, and this is one of my favorites at the moment as well, is so here we look at the cycles aligned by the all-time highs that we made. And I took the April all-time high for the last cycle because that's when the hype was really in the market, and I'll show in another chart why that is again. But so here we align the cycles from the all-time high again, and we scale them actually by realized price. And why is that useful? Well, realized prices is the actual money that flows into Bitcoin, right? So it's actually it's quite a useful tool to scale by the money that flows into Bitcoin for each cycle. It gives this a better representation than just the intraday volatility that we have in general in Bitcoin. And so you can look at the pattern of the realized price, like it kind of lines. You can see that we went steeper into it in 2013 and then in 2017, and again we went steeper in 2017 than the current cycle. And that is because of, again, this diminishing returns, right? This volatility decreasing, and but then so we scaled by realized price. But since then, like since the drop when the top is in, realized price goes relatively sideways, for each cycle. And so we can also really distinguish here between the distribution top and the blow off tops very well. And so we've fallen below realized price, and here we can see that in 2017 or in the 2018-19 bear market and the 2014 bear market as well, we went to a price of around 13,000, but mainly we stayed around that price of 17,000, right? So in 2022 we actually touched 17,000, so we had this spike down to the 17,000 line.
Yeah.
So that kind of, it would indicate that it's possible that this was it again, but we cannot rule out a drop to like the 13,000 mark, in the next 6 months or so. It is possible, this is the on-chain, just the short-term holder supply. So here we look at how much supply belongs to short-term holders. So it's again this classification of supply, and we can see these spikes within these bull markets. You can see the peak also of this short-term, like short-term holder supply is kind of peaking when we make a top in each cycle, and so this shows again like how I use this as a proxy for hype. Like it's really kind of one of the better ways to measure how much hype is there in the market.
Yeah.
And we can see for the current cycle that in the April top we had like a lot of hype. There was this huge spike in short-term holder supply, whereas for the actual all-time high that we had in November, it was kind of based on long-term holder behavior. It was short-term holders were not really involved, and so that's why we've kind of been correcting since April. So
interesting.
Which would again imply that that it's more likely that the bottom is in, because we have been correcting actually for quite a long time. We had this coincidentally this higher high, or this new all-time high, which barely surpassed the all-time high.
But if you look, each one of those highs is followed by it's got like a little child mounting next to it. So we could do the same again. Yeah,
we might do the same again. We might go down, and that's why I think like sideways price behavior is quite obvious. But you can also see that even though we went down, like the low was already in, right?
Yeah.
So
okay, I see. It's a different thing. Yeah.
So who knows? Over the next 6 months, we might see another rally and then a dump again. But
test pump.
Yeah, test pump. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is these are some bottom indicators I used. This is actually based on the short-term holder cost basis. Again, the short-term holder which is the same as the short-term holder realized price. So the average purchase price of short-term holders, that's the green line. And then we have some bands that we can draw from that, which I use this floor band to kind of see like how low can the Bitcoin price drop, like obviously these bands kind of fluctuate with the price, they're kind of like moving averages, in a way, but you can see that we bounced off this floor, and it's only like during bear markets or the Corona crash that we had that we really touched this floor band, and we also did that this time. And so it's this floor has held up very well over the last over actually whole Bitcoin's history. Only in 2013 in that spike down that we had in the bear market, we went like 2 days below it or something. But for the rest, we have been we have the kind of only touched this floor. Yeah, and this is the last chart actually. This is here I show realized losses. So again, to show that the bottom that we had in June 18, the 17K that we touched, that in terms of realized losses, it was truly like this capitulation event, right?
Right, okay.
Which was...
Panic sellers.
Yeah, well, and forced sellers because of liquidations.
Oh, of course, yeah. Well,
yeah, and so also in the 2018 bear market, we actually had less... realized losses than in last event. And these events are also, they don't happen often, like, which is kind of, again, showing that it's quite likely that the bottom might be in because, or we would have to see another such event. But, there can always be a catalyst for such an event. I don't know, macro circumstances don't look that great. So, things can still escalate, but it is quite unlikely for these things to happen, and so we've seen it, and so it's a good chance that the bottom is in.
Wow. So things are bullish, bottom's in, we're going 100K. Thanks, Root. Go and buy more Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, I try to be conservative.